Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Okay, I think everyone has joined the class. Just a second. Okay. Yes, students, are you able to see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then.
Yes, sir.
Shruti Singh, Mohammed Shanawaz, and Kamran. Do you want to get removed? No, na? I don't think you want to get removed from the class. So behave properly. Okay, beta? Yes, on the previous turn, we discussed about that how the cell is called the basic unit of life, the basic fundamental unit of life, right? On today's lecture, we are going to discuss that how is the structure of the cell organized, okay? We will first of all see the basic structure of the cell, and after that we will look into the matter of how the cells are different, and then we will talk about the structural organization of the cell. So first of all, as you can see on your screens, there are two types of cells present on your screen, right? The first cell on the left hand side is of green color. That's basically a plant cell. On the right hand side, as you can see on your screens, it is beta a animal cell. Okay, it is an animal cell. Now, the animal cell and a plant cell both are having some of the differences. Both are having some of the differences. What are the differences? Basically, those differences are also marked over here. For example, the chloroplast is present in the plant cell, but it is absent in case of animal cell, right? Similarly, a cell wall is present in the plant cell, while it is absent in case of animal cells. While the animals are having a cell organelle or little organs, that is called the centriole. So this centriole is actually absent in the plant cell. Okay, beta. Now, the important thing here that we need to understand here is that the plant and animal cell, although they are different, but they are having most of the cell organelles as same. For example, as you can see, the nuclear membrane is common, nucleolus is common, chromatin is common, the mitochondria is common, right? So there are many examples here. As you can see that these are common structures present in both, that means the animal cell as well and in the plant cell as well. Okay, now let's look on to the next part of this lecture, that is about the prokaryotic cells. Okay, now as I have told you earlier, we must do the Sandhi Vichhed in order to understand the term in biology. So the word pro means primitive. Pro means primitive. And what does the word primitive means? Primitive means which is less organized or ancient, or which is kind of old cell. Okay, and the word karyo here means nucleus. So the cells with primitive or less organized nucleus is termed as prokaryotic cell. Okay, so the word pro means primitive and karyo means nucleus. So the primitive cells, these cells are having primitive type of nucleus or cells which are less organized. These organisms, they lack a nuclear membrane. This is an important point, that the cells are having a structure like this. For example, this is the structure of the cell, and these in the particular cell in the eukaryotes we have a nucleus. We have a nucleus in the eukaryotes, but in the prokaryotes here, as we have written, lack a nuclear membrane. That means nuclear की जो membrane होती है ना बेटा, ये वाली जो membrane है, this membrane is lacking, means absent. Yes बेटा Dishant, any problem? No? Okay then. So this membrane is lacking. Okay. So if this membrane is lacking, this means that the nuclear material or the material of the nucleus is dispersed inside the cell. मतलब कि cell में फैला हुआ है, dispersed है. Okay. And since the nucleus material is dispersed inside the cell, we call that as the nucleoid. क्या बोलते हैं इसको? Nucleoid. Okay. Now, important point is they do not contain any membrane bound cell organelles. मतलब कि जो छोटे छोटे सेल ऑर्गेनल्स होते हैं ना, मेम्ब्रेन बाउंड, जिन जो एडवांस्ड सेल ऑर्गेनल्स हैं, those are absent here. Okay, except for the ribosomes. Ribosomes are advanced ones, but they are not having any membrane. Ribosomes are the cell organelles. Okay, so these are present in the prokaryotic cells. We will study about it. Okay, then examples of prokaryotic cells are bacteria, blue-green algae, or cyanobacteria. Okay, or cyanobacteria. So blue-green algae is also known as the cyanobacteria. So these are the examples of prokaryotic cell. Any doubt up till here? Anyone? Any doubt?
No, sir.
Having any doubt, you can raise your hand.
No, sir.
Okay, then let's move
No,
on.
sir.
That is the eukaryotic cell. Now, in the case of the eukaryotic cell, beta, as you can see, it is made up of two terms. We will do Sandhi Vichhed here also, right? So U, the word U, it means true. And again, the word karyo means nucleus. So the cells with true nucleus, that means well developed and advanced type of nucleus, those cells are termed as eukaryotic cells. So the eukaryotic cell can be represented as a cell which is having a well developed nucleus like this. Okay, so whenever we draw a nucleus, जब भी हम बेटा nucleus draw करते हैं, इसका मतलब क्या है, हम कौन सा cell draw कर रहे हैं? Eukaryotic cell. Okay, we are actually drawing the eukaryotic cell. Okay, now these cells are well developed and they represent advanced cells. Eukaryotic cells are advanced cells, as I told you, and they contain well developed cell membrane, nuclear membrane, and other cell organelles that float in the cytoplasm. That means they are containing well defined and advanced cell organelles, such as you can see in the diagram also, here in the diagram, it is containing various type of cell organelles, right? So these cell organelles, as you can see in the plant and in the animal also, these are well organized, proper organization के साथ हमें colorful diagram दिख रहा है. So this organization represents that it is a eukaryotic cell. Whether it is plant or whether it is animal, that's another thing. अगर उसके पास well developed cell है, that is the eukaryote. अब वो कुछ भी हो सकता है, whether it is a plant, whether it is animal, whether it is a fungus, anything. But if it is well organized, that means eukaryotic cell. Okay. So some of the examples of eukaryotic cells are the cells of humans, cells of fungus, any fungus, okay, cells of plants, cells of algae. Those are the eukaryotic cells. Okay. Now,
Sir, please give some examples of prokaryotic cells also.
okay, prokaryotic cells we have already studied bit blue-green algae or cyanobacteria, and most of the bacteria are basically prokaryotic cells. Okay, most of the
Okay, sir.
prokaryotic cells. Now, your homework is to find out the differences between the prokaryotes and the eukaryotes. You will make a table, and in that table write down the prokaryotes and eukaryotic differences. In some of the classes I have given you 4 points. Okay, you can if it is provided in your class, then well and good. If not, don't worry, we will discuss it. Okay, but this is for now, this is your homework. Find out the differences between the prokaryotes and the eukaryotes. Let's come to the next part, that is the shape and size of the cell.
सर ये एक्सक्यूज मी सर
Yes, sir. Yes, beta.
सर जो ये यूकारियोटिक और प्रोकारियोटिक के बीच में डिफरेंसेस दिए हैं आपने होमवर्क के लिए, वो व्हाट्सएप पर भेजने हैं?
No, no, beta. Just note it down in your notebook. In your fair notebook.
ओके सर.
In your fair notebook, one-sided notebook. If you have not made a notebook, then one-sided. And if you have already made a notebook, which is not one-sided, then no problem at all. You can do it in that book also. But try to make it one-sided notebook, okay? Now, the shape and size of the cell. Now, understand first of all that the shape and size of the cell, they are interrelated. Interrelated to what? Basically to the function. That means the shape of the cell will change according to the function of the cell. For example, on your screens, as you can see, all these different type of cells are of human only. That means a neuron or nerve cell is of human. This RBC is of human. This cell of intestine, this is of human cell, human body. This bone cell it is also of human. Ovum also of human, also of human. The sperm cell, human cell. White blood cell is also of human. So you can see there are different shapes of the cell. All are belonging to human, right? So why are they having different shapes? So the answer is, in order to perform the specific function, they are having different shapes and sizes. Okay. For example, if we take the cell, nerve cell, as you can see, the nerve cell over here, it is elongated. Elongated means it is having a very good length. This particular length, it is approximately 1 meter to 2 meter, approximately. It can be more than 2 meter as well. Okay, it can be more than 2 meter as well, but approximate size is 1 meter to 2 meter. Now this is the size of the cell. So it is very much possible that there is a neuron in our head and that is passing through our body up till the legs, up till the toe. तो यानी कि हमारे सर से लेकर के बेटा बिल्कुल टो तक, that there is a single neuron. Okay, this is very much possible. Now, better please mute your mic, everyone. If you do not have any query, unmute your mics.
Sir, ovum cell
Students,
क्या
okay,
क्या
the
काम
new
करता
students
है?
can contact me separately on my number, okay, and I will provide you with the work. Okay. Now, as we work about the about the nerve cell, but a nerve cell is basically going to conduct the messages. Yes, Brita Shruti, any problem?
Sir, ovum cell का क्या वर्क होता है?
हाँ, we will study one by one. हम सब चीज पढ़ेंगे एक एक करके. Okay, पहले we are studying about the neuron. So let's say that this is the neuron. Okay, this is the neuron. So this neuron is having a branched, from here it is branched, right? यहाँ पे branchings आपको दिखाई दे रही हैं, इसकी branches निकल रही हैं. These are the branches. So it is branched and then it is, we are saying that it is elongated. So elongated and branched. Why it is elongated and branched? Because it has to pass the messages from this end up till this end. Okay, so it will pass the messages from here like this up till this end. Okay, so as you can see, it is passing the message, and messages in our nervous system, they have to be passed very fastly, right? So in order to pass the messages very fast, this cell has become elongated. That means lengthwise it has increased. Okay, So this is the function. Their function is to pass the messages, and in order to perform this function very well, they have elongated themselves. Now let's come on to the RBC. The shape of the RBC, as you can see over here, it is biconcave. What is biconcave? In 7th class, you have studied about the biconcave. What is biconcave? Concave structure is like this, right? Biconcave means it is concave from two sides, like this. So it is concave from this side also, it is concave from this side also, and that is why we are saying that the RBC is biconcave. So what the RBC is trying to do by becoming biconcave, right? Actually, it is trying to change the area. It is trying to increase the area. When it will increase the area, it will be able to absorb more oxygen. It will be able to absorb more oxygen, and when it will be able to absorb more oxygen, it will be able to transport more oxygen. This is the function of RBC. RBC का function क्या होता है? Transport the oxygen from our lungs to the different body cells, right? So in order to transport more and more oxygen, it needs to absorb more oxygen. And how can it absorb more oxygen? By increasing the area. So area increases, absorption increases, amount of oxygen also increases. Okay, and the amount of oxygen that will reach to our blood, that will also increase, right? So in order to increase its efficiency, in order to perform the function, the RBC has become the biconcave. Now let's talk about ovum. Ovum is actually a female cell, female reproductive cell, as you have studied in your 8th class also in the chapter reproduction. Okay, so ovum is the reproductive cell or reproductive cell in the female body. This particular cell is spherical in shape. Is spherical in shape. Spherical means like a ball. Ball की तरह से बेटा. And this particular sperm is going to enter into the ovum. ये ovum में enter करता है. And finally, they perform a process called fertilization. That means fusion of male and female gamete. And ultimately, they form a zygote. You have already studied about this in your 8th class, right? So this is how the sperm and ovum are interacting. Okay, beta? Now let's talk about finally about the fat cell, because this fat cell is not given in your diagram on this particular screen. So let's talk about that. Let's see if this is a cell. Okay. Now here in the middle portion, actually beta, these fat cells are going to store in the middle portion. They are going to store the fat. In the middle portion, they are going to store the fat. So where is the nucleus? Actually, nucleus shifts towards the corners. ये corner की तरफ shift हो जाता है बेटा. So this is the nucleus. And this is the cytoplasm. So nucleus and cytoplasm, they have shifted towards the corner. This is the cytoplasm of the cell. Okay, so nucleus and the cytoplasm, they have shifted towards the corners, and the fat is getting stored in the center. So as to why the fat cells are doing this? क्यों कर रहे हैं ऐसा? So that they can accommodate, they can hold maximum amount of fat in their body. Okay, fat in themselves, so that they can store maximum fat. Okay, any doubt up till here?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, then
Sir.
on to the next part, that is the structural organization of the cell. Now in this part we are dealing with how the cell is organized. Okay, we are dealing that how a cell is organized. Now let us first of all understand what do we mean by that. We are trying to understand that if you want to understand the structure, हमें structure समझना है. How can we understand the structure? So in order to understand the structure, we basically, if you want to draw the basic diagram, we can draw it like this, that there is a cell, there is a nucleus, okay, and then there is a cytoplasm in it. And this is the cell membrane. So we are having three basic structures and we are calling them as the structural unit or structurally organization of the cell. Structural organization of the cell is dependent on three structures. So this cell membrane, first thing is cell membrane. It is the boundary. Cell membrane is the boundary which is limiting or holding the components of the cell. सेल के अंदर के components जितने भी है बेटा उनको hold करके कौन रखेगा? Cell membrane, so that the cytoplasm cannot flow anywhere or will not flow in one particular direction. ये कहीं भाग ना जाए तो उसको कौन hold करके रखेगा? Cell membrane. Now this cytoplasm is basically a jelly-like substance. It is basically a jelly-like substance, or you can say semi-solid or semi-solid like substance. Like you must have observed slime, right? Slime. So the cytoplasm is just like that. Okay. Now the nucleus, it is the main part of the cell, brain of the cell, or you have studied, it is also called the controlling unit of the cell. Without nucleus, there is no cell. If we have a cell and if we remove nucleus from that particular cell, the cell will be dead. Okay, so cell is very important. Cell is the nucleus is the brain of the cell. If we remove the nucleus, then the cell will die. So nucleus is the brain of the cell. Okay. So structurally, we are having three components. That is, first one is the plasma membrane, second one is the nucleus, and third one is the cytoplasm. These are the three components of the cell. As you can see in the diagram, here is a cell or plasma membrane. Here we are having plasma membrane. Then we are having nucleus. This is the nucleus. Then we are having cytoplasm. This is the cytoplasm. Okay. So three components are here. All the type of cell organelles like ribosome, mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, everything, it is contained inside the cytoplasm. Okay. कहाँ पे है ये? Cytoplasm में. Okay. Now one more thing. The plant cells are having one extra layer that's called the cell wall. Okay. But this cell wall is not present in case of animal cells. In animal cells, this cell wall is absent. And since it is absent in the animal cells, we are not making it as the official component or structural component of the cell. So in the structural organization of the cell, we do not include this cell wall. Okay. Now, about the plasma membrane. Next, our topic is about the plasma membrane. But before that, do you have any question, beta, related to the prokaryotes, eukaryotes, shape and function, and structural organization? Any question? Anyone?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, then let's move on to the plasma membrane. Plasma membrane, or we can call it beta cell membrane. We can call it cell membrane. So plasma membrane and cell membrane, it's the same thing. Okay. Now, first point is it is selectively permeable or semi-permeable. Selectively permeable, semi-permeable. What does it mean? It means that it is the outermost layer, right? It is the outermost layer. So if this is the cell and here it is the nucleus, then we are saying that if something wants to go outside of the cell and if something wants to enter inside the cell, it will be allowed by the plasma membrane. And let's say if the substance, this is the substance that wants to cross the plasma membrane. Let's say if the plasma membrane is not allowing this particular substance to cross through the plasma membrane, and this substance will not enter inside the cell. Okay, beta? So who is going to regulate that this particular substance is going to enter inside or outside the cell? That is the plasma membrane. So that is why we have written that it is selectively permeable. It is permeable, that means it permits the substances, but it is selective about it. Since it is selective about it, that's why we have written as selectively permeable. Okay. Any doubt up till here? Selectively permeable membrane?
No, sir.
Okay then. Now, selectively permeable, or we can give it a second term as the semi-permeable. Selectively permeable and semi-permeable. These are the two terms that we can use alternatively. Okay. Since it is this plasma membrane, it is able to choose which substance will enter inside the cell and which will go outside the cell. That is why we say that it is a living structure, because the dead structure cannot decide which substance will enter and which substance will leave the cell. Since it can decide which will enter and which will leave, that is why we say that plasma membrane is the living structure of this. Okay. Now, next point is about the makeup of the cell. That what is this particular plasma membrane made up of? So the outermost layer of the cell, outermost layer that we are talking about, the plasma membrane, this membrane, it is made up of the proteins and fats. It is made up of protein and fats. Now, there's one important thing, or important definition that's going to come up. So we are going to take an example here. And what's the example? Let's assume that there is a room. This is the room. Okay. Now let's assume another point that in this particular corner, we have sprayed any kind of, let's say, room freshener, okay, in this particular corner with the yellow part. Now, after 2 minutes, if you are present on the corner number 2, let's say, this is corner number 1. So if you are present, if you smell the corner number 2 after some time, will you be able to smell the perfume? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we will be able to smell the
Yes,
perfume
sir.
after a few minutes. Since we will be able to smell perfume, that means this simply means that better this perfume, the particles of the perfume have traveled from this particular point number 1 up till the point number 2. So this process means the movement. So the movement of particles, the particles have moved, and these particles have moved from a area, from this area to this particular second area, right? Now listen to me very carefully now. Okay, beta? Movement of the particles from lower concentration. Lower concentration means where they are having low amount. So movement of the particles from their lower concentration, sorry, not from the lower, actually, not from the lower, from their higher concentration. जहां पे उनकी concentration, जहां पे उनका amount बेटा ज्यादा है. Okay, so movement of particle from the concentration higher concentration towards the lower concentration. So if the particles are moving from higher to the lower, then we call this particular movement as diffusion. So the movement of the particles from higher concentration to the lower concentration, that's called diffusion. Now tell me one thing, the particles of the perfume is in this particular example, they are present more in number in corner number 1 or in corner number 2? Zyada kahan par hai?
Sir, corner number 1.
Right?
Corner number 1.
1. So they are present more in number in the corner number 1. So they will. So that is why they have moved the particles of the perfume have moved from corner number 1 to the corner number 2, and that is why we say that this particular movement actually diffusion.
Diffusion.
Okay, got the point? So
Yes, sir.
movement of particles. The particles could be
Yes, sir.
particles could be any, कोई से भी particles हो सकते हैं. Okay, so I have taken example of perfume. You can take example of any kind of, let's say, any deodorant or any other thing, any color. Okay, so diffusion is basically movement of particles from higher concentration to lower concentration. But another thing is energy. No energy is spent on this process. They are moving, the particles are moving, but they are not using any energy. Okay, and since they are not using any energy, that's why we say that the movement of particles from a higher concentration of any substance, from region of its higher concentration to the region of its lower concentration without the expenditure of energy, it is called as diffusion. Okay, any problem up till here?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, then. So that's it for today, and we will continue tomorrow. On the next turn, we will continue from here only. Okay, beta? And if you have any further questions or any particular problem, then you can contact me on WhatsApp. And if there is any new admission, and if you want to know anything, then also you can contact me on WhatsApp. And my WhatsApp number is beta 96499, or you can call me also 53766. Okay. So that's it for today. Thank you, everyone. And if you have any question, you can text me on WhatsApp. Okay, beta?
Good afternoon, sir.
Okay, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, beta. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, sir. Bye, sir.